meeting is
Awesome.
being recorded.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us for the first of our three-part communications training series for this fall from the Choose Clean Water Coalition. We are thrilled to have Eckl from Waterwords That Work join us for all three of these trainings. Today, we're going to be talking about branding, and we were talking before about how branding rears its head, whether you're doing digital communications, media, you're doing media relations, you're in the press, print, your fundraising teams, your program staff. Branding is everywhere within an organization. And as we'll see today, it's really critical to get branding right to more effectively accomplish your mission and spread the word about your work for clean water. So really excited to have you all this morning, or I guess I should say this afternoon. Just one quick housekeeping note. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat or the Q&A feature. If they're timely to what Eric's discussing at that moment, I'll ask it at that time, or you can also hold on your questions. We'll have time for a Q&A at the end. But with that, Eric, take it away.
All right. Thanks, Drew. Thanks, Rosie. Thanks, everybody. Let's get started. Branding 101. An hour presentation on the very, very fundamentals of branding for people who are, I expect, are not that familiar with these concepts. And then the subtitle is More Than a Logo. And you're going to hear me kind of beat this drum for the next hour that there's much more to a brand than the logo. And so we're going to start off with just a fun little exercise, as a matter of fact, just to kind of get you right into the space. We're going to do this old school with pencil and paper. And then you can turn on your webcams and show us what you come up with. I want to give you a couple of minutes from memory to draw the logo for one of your kitchen appliances, something in the kitchen that you probably see pretty often. It might be General Electric, might be Samsung, might be KitchenAid, might be Panasonic, might be Whirlpool. I don't know what you have in your kitchen. Take a couple of minutes and try to draw from memory the logo for one of these appliances that you see on a daily basis, and then hold it up to the webcam so we can all see what you come up with. Or maybe because it's a webinar, Drew, they'll have to raise their hand to show us what they came up with.
Yeah, I think I'll make everyone a panelist so everyone can can share. So I'll do that right here.
All right, terrific. All right, I got one from Courtney. GE, just a circle in the thing. I got one from Nancy. I got Whirlpool in a circle. Anybody else got one? I got another GE. Katie did great. I got 4, 5 out of 20 something. 4 or 5 of you out of 20 some odd. 4 or 5 out of 20 some odd. Logos are actually pretty hard to remember, aren't they? And these are big brand logos in a prominent place in your home that you encounter pretty often. Here's the next warm up. What company is this? You can drop it in the chat. McDonald's, 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 McDonald's. My goodness. One, don't know. You guys are doing a better job recognizing an ad that doesn't even have a logo than you were drawing the logo from your kitchen appliance. Take a look at this. There's no logo on here. It's not even in English. There's no hamburger on here. There's no French fries on here. And yet still you are able to recognize the brand behind this advertisement. And part of the reason that you're able to do that, a big part of the reason that you're able to do that is that McDonald's is super disciplined about the full brand. They always use the yellow, they always use the red, and they always use Helvetica font, key components of the brand. And because they have been so disciplined about it for so long, you can recognize McDonald's even without the logo, even without their most common products, even without the message being in English. You all can recognize McDonald's with just the barest signal. You get the barest hint of a signal and you're like, yeah, that's McDonald's right there. They repeat the same colors and fonts and symbols and words over and over and over again until they sink in. Oh, Katie's got a McDonald's right there. After working on this presentation, I went to McDonald's. I've been staring at McDonald's all afternoon putting this together for you guys. And I am going to come back to the McDonald's example again and again for that very reason. There's not that many companies actually out there whose brand is so distinct in our minds that you could recognize it even given this bare bones signal right here. But I'm also going to compare it to, we're also going to talk about branding specifically in the context of the kinds of organizations that you all represent. So now the rookie mistake is to over-focus on the logo and neglect the rest of the brand. It's just a very common thing to do when you have a board and you have staff that aren't really immersed in this world. The first thing they think of in a brand is the logo. So they put a lot of attention into the logo and neglect all of the things that go around the logo, which, as the McDonald's example shows you, are every bit as powerful as the logo, and in some cases, even more powerful than the logo. So now those were our warm-up exercises. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk next about the brand book and three big components of a brand book and why it's a useful thing for all of you to have. I'll talk about how brand books and software go together. Your common office software is actually a really great tool. We'll talk a little bit about brands and writing. I'll share my parting thoughts and we'll be done. And as Drew mentioned, I'll take your questions at any time. And if you want to save them to the end, that's fine too. So McDonald's has a brand book. Why are they so disciplined about the red and the yellow and the Helvetica font in white? Because there is official guideline. The brand book could be a style guide or a visual identity guide. There's lots of synonyms that people use. When they're making a new advertisement or a new menu or whatever they're designing, they have to follow these guidelines. They have to use not just yellow, they have to use this yellow. They can't just use red, they have to use this red. Very, very highly prescriptive brand guidelines to make sure that they are working towards a place where you recognize the McDonald's brand with just the barest hint of information. And of course, there's a lot of extra highfalutin fluff in here because they're corporations and they do that. But the heart of the brand guideline is how do you use the logo? What colors do you use? What fonts do you use? And how do you describe the organization? So now what I've got for you here is a selection of brand books for organizations that are going to be familiar to you. So I'm going to drop these into the chat right now. These are brand books for conservation organizations. And if you click on that link right there that I just dropped into the chat, you will download this very helpful selection. This is, we have one from the Water Research Foundation. I have a brand book from Lynchburg Parks and Recreation. I have a brand book from Lake Superior National Estuarine Research Reserve. That is a mouthful. They did not let me help them come up with their name in a branding process. And then I've got a brand book for the World Wildlife Fund, and I have a brand guideline from the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture. This one is about 80 pages. This is one page. I'll talk about why this is too much and this is too little as we go along. I have brand books from nonprofit organizations, but I'm not at liberty to share those. I only shared ones that I knew I had permission to use, but you can download those, and I'll walk through some of the key components of these for you, but that's what they're for. These are guidelines. These are rules. These are rules that writers and graphic designers must follow when they are designing or writing or preparing, you name it. As Drew mentioned, it's you name it. Brochures, banners, signs, Facebook ads, email headers, websites, the brand guidelines, the visual identity guide, however you want to call it, all the synonyms for what these are rules that, that creative people are supposed to follow as they create whatever they're creating, so it is recognizably a feature of that organization. And so let's talk about colors. Colors are, in fact, super, super important. And in our world, we overwhelmingly gravitate towards blue and green. And there's reasons why you should do that, and there's also reasons why you shouldn't do that. But the main point I want to make here is that this is just the right amount of colors. Here's the blue of the logo. Here's the other blue of the logo. And then I've got 4 other colors to choose from that don't clash with these 2 colors and look good next to this logo. I have colors that contrast with the logo because as the McDonald's example shows you, it's not just the color of the logo, it is also very, very much about the color that is next to the logo and surrounds the logo. Now, a very common rookie mistake here is we're seeing this here from Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture. They tell me about the blue that is in the logo, and they tell me about the green that is in the logo, but they don't give me any guidance on the colors that would go next to these. So when my graphic designer is working for Department of Agriculture, we have to invent the large colors. You know, we'll fill up large blocks of a brochure or whatever it is we're designing for that client that we made up because they didn't give us any guidance. And, you know, if they only tell us what these 2 colors in the logo are, they miss a big opportunity to send a powerful signal about their identity by consistently sticking to the contrasting colors. Now, this is the Lake Superior National Estuarine Research Reserve, and this is the other mistake. Now, there are too many colors to choose from. You know, we've got these colors from the logo, and that's great up here. But then there's so many other choices that my designers would make or other designers would make that, you know, you're just not going to get that repetition of the red over and over again until it sinks in. Brands are basically little building blocks that you will repeat over and over and over again until you're tired of it. Then you will repeat them over and over and over again until you're really tired of it. And then you will repeat them over and over again until you're going to throw up if you use them again. And then you will keep repeating them. And that is how they stick outside of the realm of people who are exposed to these things all the time. So 2 colors is too few. And many, many times when I'm working with a conservation organization, they will only tell me what colors are in the logo, and they won't tell me what colors should go around the logo. And that is a big error. Now, the color choice is super profound. Your colors will always appeal to some people more than others. There's no way around that. There's no set of colors that appeals to everybody. So you want to think carefully about who you're trying to appeal to and pick carefully with those in mind. I'm just going to give you 2 examples, and there's plenty more where that came from. And one of the really important differences on color perception is by gender. This is the quote from National Geographic. Females are better at discriminating among colors, while males excel at tracking fast-moving objects and discerning detail from a distance. I don't fully understand the biological explanation for why this is. It has something to do with rod and cone cells in the eye, and more of one and less of the other. I don't really know. But this image is really telling here, because the woman can see this full range of spectrum of colors, and she can come up with a name for every single shade. And meanwhile, the gentleman here tends to revert all the names back to the primary colors: red, purple, pink, orange, yellow, green. And meanwhile, she's like clover, fern, moss, flora, et cetera, et cetera. And I do say that this, I believe this has biological origins, because men are 16 times more likely to be colorblind than women. How about that? 16 times. And there are gender preferences here. And the good news for you is that blue and green are the preferred colors for both men and women, but there are distinctions. Men like black. I'm not wearing black today, whereas women will put purple in the top of their list. But women will often report they like the lighter tints where the colors aren't as bold, and the men will report that they like the darker shade. So the men might prefer a straight up red, whereas the women may be more find some of the tints and shades like cayenne or maroon to be more appealing. And Kate says it might have to do with our early days of hunting and gathering. Yes, it's entirely possible. I don't want to, this is not my area of expertise, but this one right here, where you see that men are 16 times more likely to be colorblind than women, that hints to me that we're talking about something that is genetic rather than cultural. Just my thoughts. So even more important is that there are some racial diversity considerations with your color choices. Caucasians are very fond of blue and green, but in this really great article which I found, we see that people with different ethnicities will often prefer red and yellow. When marketing to the Hispanic population, one would want to add yellow and red tones. With globalization, we're seeing more colors from Asia, also in the red and yellow family. African Americans, some researchers find, are drawn to strong saturated color, often in red, yellow, and brown families. Now, I can see the French and Pickering Creek Conservation Trust logo here on my screen, blue and green. And my company has designed dozens of logos for conservation organizations, and time again, they gravitate towards the blue and green because they are very symbolic of the mission. But by omitting some of the reds and the yellows, we are inadvertently exacerbating some of our challenges reaching out to non-whites as the conservation community. How about that? Now, this is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of colors. There's also colors have a lot of symbolism, like red is an emergency, and how that all goes. I'm not going to go into all of that, but the point that I am making, the broader point that I am making, is that color, just big colors, played a large role in you recognizing McDonald's even without a logo or a description. And the colors that you choose, both in your logo and next to your logo, are part of the things that you can do to expand your appeal beyond the typical types of people that we see drawn to conservation organizations. So now let's talk about font. McDonald's always uses the same font, and this particular font is known as Helvetica, which I believe was designed in Switzerland in the 50s. And Helvetica, here's another description of Helvetica. You can see in all of its various flavors. You got ultralight thin, Roman medium, bold, heavy black, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Helvetica is known as the corporate font because it is used by many, many, many corporations: Panasonic, JCPenney, Jeep, Sears, American Airlines, Microsoft, 3M, on and on. All of these corporations are, all of these logos, these are all variations on the Helvetica font. And fonts evoke a very powerful response. Typography is super, super powerful. If you want to make the case that you are a large corporation and all of the good and the bad that comes with a large corporation, the Helvetica font does that very well. Now I'm going to show you some examples of some other fonts that do not evoke a corporate flavor, and I am curious how you will react to them. So here you go. Let's go with the first one. What is the personality of this brand right here? What does it make you think of? Let me see it in the chat. Scary, Halloween, edgy slasher films. Okay, it's spooky. All right. What about this one? Whimsical, poetic, a wedding invitation, several wedding invitations. Yes, bridal showers. It's got that very flavor. Now, look, the words are the same. What is the personality of this brand? What is the personality of this brand? And the only thing that has changed, I haven't even changed the colors, is the typography. And one sends you a very clear message of one thing, another sends you a very clear message of another thing. How about this one? Boring, it's newspaper, there's a memo, maybe a hipster blog, old school typewriter. Absolutely. The font that you see here is the Courier font. And back in the days of old, when we used typewriters instead of computers, we saw this font over and over and over again. It was the Calibri of its day. It was just the font that you didn't think about when you saw it. We use this font now, and it evokes a typewriter. It evokes that old-fashioned flavor. How about this one? Bookish, education, scholarly, formal, journal. Yeah, so now this font that you see right here is Times New Roman, and this is the font that the New York Times is printed in. And it has that scholarly newspaper feel. Many books, even to this day, are printed in the Times New Roman font. It's one of the classics. How about this one? Email, normal sans, direct, modern, young student. Coming in a lot slower. I'm getting a lot fewer thoughts, which is not surprising because this font is Calibri. This is the default font in Microsoft Office. As Courtney says, it's neutral. It is by design intended to be as neutral as possible. This is a very extravagant font. This is an extravagant font. You would use these very sparingly. This is an old font. This is a very trusted font. And this one is designed to be as neutral as possible. So now well-branded organizations are conscious that the fonts that they choose send a super powerful message about the type of organization that they are and the flavor that they evoke. And thinking long and hard about the fonts that you're going to be using in your brand, more than so many other things, catches that personality that you are looking for. And so let's just talk at a very high level. In the logo, it is perfectly fine to use some extravagant fonts with some, zhuzh to them. You can see here, this is the Wild Rivers Conservancy and how the L goes on to the D. That's, distinctive. The Western Rivers Conservancy, you have, it looks like a Times New Roman with some exaggeration. This kind of looks like it could be a yoga studio to me also. The Alliance for Watershed Education has some very distinctive stuff going on. And this is all fine in the logo, but you should use it very sparingly everywhere else. These kinds of flashy, extravagant fonts work very well in a very small dose, but they do not look very well in a long passage of text. So just to illustrate the point, this is the font of the McDonald's Golden Arches. And if McDonald's always used the logo font, their messages would look like this. I bet some of you don't even want to read even that on the screen. You're just like, ugh. So that's why they are very consciously using just the M from this whole big font set. And then they use easy reading Helvetica everywhere else. Helvetica is designed to be super easy reading. So the font that you use next to the logo font is a really important consideration. And here is that rookie mistake again with Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture. Sorry to pick on them, but they just gave me the ammunition. The font that they have here, Myriad Bold Condensed, is the font that is in the logo. So if I use the same font next to the logo as I use in the logo, I am diminishing the font in the logo. And then they have this Montana font, which is very extravagant and it should be used very sparingly. Sarah, I see your question. My view, Sarah, is that whatever font you use in your logo, you not use it in the rest of your document. It just makes it harder to stand out. A little bit of contrast is really kind of the best practice. And so now Callie's comment here is really great. The book noted that the font used in a book was specifically created as one that is easier for people with dyslexia. Now, I have not heard of that, but I will tell you that that sounds very plausible to me because many fonts now are designed for very specific purposes. The highway department uses certain fonts on highway signs because they have scientifically determined that these are easier to read if you're going by at a high speed. Microsoft designed the Calibri font to be very versatile on screens of all sizes. That a font is also designed around the needs of people with dyslexia is no surprise at all. Fonts have been very, there used to only be a handful of fonts and now there's a million endless number of fonts. And if you want, you can download software that helps you design your own font just for you. I'm not encouraging you to do that, but it's possible. And so the number of fonts is pretty much limitless now. And they are scientifically chosen for specific audiences. For those of you on the phone, I don't think you need to go all the way down that rabbit hole, but the big takeaway is whatever font you're using in your logo, you probably want to use some different fonts in your main text, and having a professional help you select those fonts is probably a good investment. So here's some examples of how your partners are handling it with the examples that I showed you. This is Water Research Foundation, and here is the typography section of their, they call it visual identity guidelines. That's their word. I'll blow it up for you. Their primary is Architeca. Their other primary is DIN Pro, and then Calibri is the alternate. And so with so many fonts available now, it will often happen that you're trying to prepare something, in this case for Water Research Foundation. You don't have the recommended font, but you do have their alternate. And so that, that's why they're giving you some choices. They don't want you to use all three of these. They want you to use these two and then switch to these if you don't have these two. This is Lynchburg Parks and Rec. Here are their recommended fonts. Aleo and Leto. Aleo is for headlines. Leto is for the body text. And this, guys, can you still hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
I think I just lost power. Oh, no, I didn't lose power, but my computer just freaked out on me. Hang on here. I'm going to try and reboot and rejoin you.
I have your slides, Eric. So do you see, obviously your Zoom is still open.
Yeah, but my computer I've just lost all visuals. I'm going to have to reboot and hopefully that'll work. So y'all just bear with me for just a minute.
Anyone have any learnings or thoughts they want to share about Eric's presentation so far? Takeaways so far? Secondary color tip, more fonts and colors. Yeah. I thought the diversity angle to picking colors was really, I never thought of that before. So that was enlightening and thought-provoking for sure.
But Drew, I'm going to go see if I can boot up my other computer here. So hang on just a second.
Okay.
This has never happened before. It just shut down right in the middle of the conversation.
We've been in the Zoom world for a while now. We get it. No worries.
I don't know if you guys can hear me. I had trouble logging on, so I don't know. I hope I'm not giving people feedback. I might have my phone open too. But if anyone is at all interested, the name of the book that I was talking about, it's called Aaron Slater Illustrator. And I'm trying to look up whether or not it actually tells you what font it's written in. But I've been thinking a lot about that in terms of how we're communicating both with pictures and fonts and making sure that especially safety messages about some of our things we're talking about when we talk about recreation and paddling, is everyone able to read what we're putting out there? Going a little bit beyond branding, but just fonts.
Sure. No, thanks for sharing though.
Well, I mean, it's totally related to what we're talking about because, the big idea
Yeah, I think you muted yourself there, Eric.
This meeting is being recorded.
Yep, we see it, Eric. Oh, we did.
It says loading on my screen. Give it just a second.
Yeah.
All right, now you can see it. Yeah.
You were on slide 37, if I remember correctly.
All right, got the laser pointer?
Yep, it's good.
And you can hear me. All right, so alternate fonts. This is Lynchburg Parks and Rec. We did that one. And this is Lake Superior National Estuarine Research Reserve. So if you look in the sample of the brand books that I sent you, you can see how what they're doing is that they're specifying which fonts should be used in every document. It's a small number of choices, and we're doing that with a small number of choices on purpose because our goal is to repeat the same things over and over again so that they stick. And if you have too many choices, there will be no repetition. And if there is no repetition, there is no retention. All right, so now let's get to what we tend to think is the most important part of the brand, which is the logo. And here is the section on the logo from the Water Research Foundation. And in the typical brand book or identity guide or style guide, or however you want to call it, there's lots of synonyms there. They will specify the use of the logo, such as the minimum size or what happens if it's white on a dark background. Here we have similar things. You see this in Lynchburg Parks and Rec. What is the ideal size and kind of the preferred way of presenting that. Here, the Lake Superior National Estuarine Research Reserve has some do's and don'ts, and they want how much space. I find that some of this can be a little bit overly prescriptive, but every now and then when I hire a graphic designer to come back and do something, they will make rookie mistakes in the display of the logo, and then I can just pull out the brand guide and show it to the designer and say, not like that. So I've noticed with conservation organizations, there is a cliche that people like ourselves tend to gravitate to over and over and over again, and the times are changing, and this is not the best choice. And this is some kind of image or symbol on the left, and the name of the organization on the right, and maybe even the slogan, like this, or like this, or like this. And the problem with this is when the logo is so wide and so not tall, is that in 2022, your logo is very often delivered electronically. And so now, I'm going to give a compliment to Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture. They have a wide version of the logo that follows the cliche formula, but they also have a narrower and taller version of the logo. And in 2022, this version is actually more useful in more places because that's going to work better in all of the various electronic formats where your logo is going to be squeezed into either a box or a circle. The internet assumes that your logo is going to be in a box or in a circle. And if you're following the kind of the cliched conservation organization logo, that just does not work very well in that context. Now, logos, when people hire us to do logos, they often think it's going to be fun and it's going to be quick and it's an art project and we're going to love it. And then they are not ready for all of the different rounds of revision that go into this. So I have a video for you to watch, and I have learned the best way to share videos on Zoom is for me to send you the link. So here we go. This is not a logo that WaterWords did. This is not my video. It's just a coincidence that it says water environment technology. But I'm going to give you a second to watch this logo video. It takes 3 minutes. And drop it in the chat when you've had a chance to watch it all the way through. Starting to see people saying, oh, it's done. All right. So it's funny that you react to the music. That's interesting. So yeah, just a coincidence that that logo has water in the name. But I really love how this video shows how many twists and turns it took this company to arrive at that logo in the end. I counted one time, it was like 32 different variations before they were final, and that is normal. And for conservation organizations where everybody gets a say, the staff's opinion will count, the board's opinion will count. You might share draft concepts with your members or your supporters and get all that feedback. The process of coming up with a logo that everybody is ready to live with can easily take months. It can easily take months to go from the logo that you have to the new logo, or to go from no logo to a logo. And it can be a lot of heartache in some of the organizations that you are representing when they think this is going to be quick, easy, and fun, and it actually ends up taking months with many meetings and constant facilitation and compromise among all the people over which way the leaf is pointing or what color green they like. Logos are getting a new logo is a big deal, and it costs a lot of money. Now, the good news I have for you on the brand is that software makes it really easy for you to stay on brand. This is a screenshot out of Canva. It's a very popular design software. Many conservation organizations are moving to Canva. So we have moved to Canva because that's where our clients are. I really like this software. For graphic design, you don't have to be a great graphic designer to produce nice looking stuff on Canva. Check it out. And Canva has a brand kit, and I can set up a kit for each client that we're working on. You can set up one for yourself. And so here is a brand kit for Water Research Foundation. So here's the Water Research Foundation logo. I have loaded the logos into the brand kit. They're at my fingertips. This is Water Research Foundation's official colors. I simply preloaded the colors into the design software. Here is their official typography. I have preloaded the typography into the software. And you can do that in the Microsoft Office suite. You can use it in the Google Workspace, I think they're calling it nowadays. They've changed the name a lot. If you're in the Apple environment, all of those productivity software, they allow you to set default fonts and default colors. These are the standard Google colors, and here are the brand colors, the custom colors, to make it super easy that you're always on brand with the fonts, you're always on brand with the colors, and you have the logos that you need in whatever format at your fingertips. You don't have to go back to the brand guide every single time. Now, brands also exist in writing, and let's talk about that a little bit. There are 5 major pieces that a brand has in writing, and that's the name and the slogan, and you hope that the public might recognize these and remember these. And then there's an elevator speech, mission statement, sometimes called the vision statement, which are useful for you, but don't expect that the public is going to recognize that. So the name's an obvious one, and I have a resource for you that I am going to share. So we've done a lot of work around renaming conservation organizations, and this memo kind of shares what we have found for you. So I'll send that to you as a link. You can download that. If your organization is thinking about changing its name, you'll find some useful tips in there. I'm going to summarize it in its barest bones, is that the name that tests the best consistently, place after place, year after year, organization after organization, is Conservancy. It's my strongest testing name there. It does not evoke land trust to people outside of the conservation community. It just doesn't. So the Potomac Conservancy has a really great name. The Chesapeake Conservancy has a really great name. Obviously, the Nature Conservancy has a really great name. If you're thinking about renaming your organization, put that word in the mix. You might be happy with how that works for you. The worst word to put in your name is the word watershed, because many, many people do not know what that word is. When they run across that word, they are not curious about it. And we have made a lot of money over the years helping organizations. They were a watershed association or the Watershed Council, and they're beating their head against the wall trying to recruit volunteers and donors for an organization that's got the word watershed in the name. And many times a group comes to us and they're the Watershed Association, and when they leave us, they're the so-and-so Conservancy. It was Connecticut River Watershed Council. Now they're the Connecticut River Conservancy, because that is what the testing says is going to be most appealing. The public may also hope to recognize your slogan. Here's the McDonald's slogan. I'm sure you recognize that. They change their slogan like every 10 years. And we've done a lot of work around slogans too, and I have a memo to share with you. If you need a new slogan, I think you will find this particular memo gives you a good head start. With some common formulas. So Drew, I got 5 minutes left. I could skip ahead, or I could pause now and open for questions. Or do you want me to, I mean, we lost a few minutes there from my computer snafu. How do you want me to handle that? Can you give me 5 extra minutes, or do I need to pause now and give people a chance to ask their questions?
What do the folks think? Feel free to drop in the chat if you can stay to 105. How about sounds like, yeah, some people could say, let's just do questions now and then we can come back to this.
Okay.
And then we can
take
also
questions until or whenever.
Okay, yeah. So I guess we could just pause real quick. Does anyone have any questions for Eric before we keep going?
I'm just really surprised. I'm just gonna say I'm still really surprised that people still don't know watershed. I remember you gave that presentation. I was working at the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection like 15 years ago, and you said that, and I just can't believe it's still the case. That's crazy.
Oh, it's still the case. We just did a big test on it earlier this year, and the number, it was like 41% could get it right on a multiple choice question, which was within the margin of error of 2015 when we did it the last time. It just doesn't budge. Regular people don't use that word. They're never exposed to it. It's inside baseball.
True.
Putting the word watershed in your name is one of the biggest branding rookie mistakes that a conservation organization can make. I wish, I know that means a lot of you on the line, and I'm sorry to give you that bad news, but it's true.
All right, I don't see
any other questions? All right, well, let's talk about elevator speeches then versus mission statements. And I'm going to go back to my trusty McDonald's exercise for you. And this is the elevator speech from the brand book from McDonald's. And this gentleman right here is a former CEO of McDonald's. Apparently, he is no longer the CEO, but I like the picture. It fits well in my PowerPoint slide. And it's got the M in the back. So here we go. The elevator speech. We're the nation's leading hamburger chain. Even if you don't eat our food, you probably recognize our golden arches. We pioneered the concept of franchising, and we're proud that women and minorities own more than 40% of our restaurants. Listen to how easy it was for me to say that. One short sentence, another short sentence, short words, concrete words, everyday person words. A third short sentence, a fourth short sentence. You can say that. And the elevator speech is verbal delivery. It's how you explain your organization verbally which is very different from how you would explain your organization in writing. And the rookie mistake is to only have an explanation that is suitable in writing and to not have an explanation that is crafted for verbal delivery. So let's do the exercise. You can put yourself on mute for this, but first I want you to read the elevator speech, and then I want you to read their corporate vision statement out loud. That is the point of this exercise. That is the point of this part of the conversation. Read the two of them out loud and drop it into the chat and tell me which one rolls off the tongue. Danielle's got an opinion. French and Pickering Creeks, got it. Yep, so let's try that exercise now with some conservation organizations. These are actual mission statements from actual conservation organizations, actual elevator speeches that we helped them come up with, but I did take their name out. So read these two out loud with your mouth, and you'll feel the difference. Now read these two out loud and you will feel the difference.
Can I jump in with a quick
Okay.
question, Eric? Do you promote the idea that, say, if you have an elevator speech, that you use it the same way as you would your brand and your logo? Is that everyone who might find themselves, sorry, it's pouring here. I don't know what you can hear. That everyone who finds themselves interacting with the public, that they sort of memorize and deliver the same elevator speech?
Yes, absolutely. That's exactly what I'm saying they should do. They don't have to do it like word for word, comma for comma, but they want to hit those points. And French and Pickering Creeks asked a great question. What is the difference? The main difference is how many periods there are. You know, this is 2 sentences. This one is 1 sentence. 1 sentence. There's no place for your mouth to take a break. There's no, oh, I'm sorry, this is also 2 sentences, but look at the difference, how long it is and how concrete it is. In the conservation organization, we really like the long inclusive lists here through partnerships with PA, DCNR, USFS&P. It's a long list of alphabet soup. You can get away with that in a mission statement. You cannot get away with that asking people to memorize that. And Gil has asked, does it depend on the audience? Well, everything depends on the audience, but with an elevator speech, you want to open that up to be as inclusive as possible. So now Danielle is asking about writing at the 4th grade level. Now, that seems like a simple question, but it is actually a lot more complicated than you might imagine, because the readability scale uses the word grade, but the grades do not correspond to the American school system grades. So if I say you're going to write something at the 12th grade level, you think that means it's fine for high school students, but it does not. If you're going to write for high school students, you should be writing at the 6th grade level. And if you write at the 12th grade level, that's like PhD level material. And that is because the readability score was come up with by a bunch of academics. And it never occurred to them that if they said that their tiers were grades, everyone in America would think that that means high school, you know, elementary school, high school grades. It does not. So yes, if you are going to be speaking for the general public, using the readability score, which is a tool, a scientific tool, you're looking for that to be at the 6th grade. But that does not mean that you're making it for a bunch of 6th graders. There's a lot of confusion around that. It's really a problem for us. So I'll share my parting thoughts with you. The simpler the brand is visually and linguistically, the easier it is to remember, and therefore the more effective it is. Fewer words, fewer colors, 3, 4, 5 colors is plenty, not 20. The fewer words you can tell your story in, the better, and repeating them. It's about repeating simple things until they stick. Now, developing a good brand for an organization is a very complicated project, and because the staff and the board can become really invested in their personal opinions, trying to get an organization to agree on a logo is probably the hardest thing I have to do in any given year, and I've been doing it for 15 years. People just imagine like they're going to have it tattooed on their forehead, and everybody wants to love the logo, and there's not a lot of agreement necessarily on what they love. So if you're considering a branding or a rebranding project, I would encourage you to have some outside help, at the very least, a facilitator, to make sure that the individual disagreements, and there will be many along the way, are handled somewhat impartially. And if that vendor has experience with the branding in particular, of course, that would be super useful for you as well. Hopefully, one of the things that you took away from this presentation is that there is more to this than meets the eye. It's not just about the logo, and the things that you don't know can get you as much as the things that you do, and that's where having some expert help comes in. That is the end of my presentation. Thank you for hanging with me for an extra 4 minutes and indulging me some computer problems. I guess after this, I'm gonna grab a bite to eat and go up and troubleshoot my computer. Drew, tell them when we're gonna meet again.
Yeah, so our next meeting is October 12th. We are tackling, you have a website, now what? So everything about website optimization, getting your message out to more people through your website. Real quick, before folks hop off, just want to highlight again, I put this in the chat a couple of times, but we do have a brief survey that we'd really appreciate if everyone could take just a couple minutes to fill this out from today's training. So just dropped it in the chat. Would appreciate everyone's thoughts. But our registration page for the other 2 trainings is still live, so feel free to check those out. But we also will, I'll be sending out the recording of this to everyone who registered later today. But do want to pause to see if any folks have other questions for Eric.
Sorry, Eric, I have one more quick one. This is Tali again. So literally just yesterday, I was having a conversation about words that resonate with people these days, either like post-COVID days or whatever. And I don't know if this is something that would go in the elevator speech, but she was talking about how and I'm going to use it. I work with Watershed Association, so I'm going to use that word. And we were talking about like what messaging resonates with people when you're trying to engage them to come to your organization or convince them that your organization is doing really great stuff. And she was saying words like, the fact that we're outdoors, we're safe, right? We do things outdoors. So to make people feel comfortable, we're hyper local because people are craving connection to their local community. Is that something that resonates, or is that, we can also talk about that at some other session, but those like this
we
safe
have training on,
outdoors, hyper local.
Work. We have a whole training on the words that work, but the big takeaway is that conservation organizations tend to use too many words. We just really overestimate the attention span of those who are lay people for us, and too many words like watershed that are unfamiliar. And yes, it is more, safe is a good word, outdoors is a good word, nature is a good word. But that's a whole nother training session that we've got, because that's such a big topic.
Okay, well, thanks. This was great as usual.
Any other questions from the group?
Actually, I have a quick question.
Go for it,
I'm
Rosie.
curious how you come up with your branding colors, Eric, for the organizations you work with.
Well, it's a rather complicated process, but it starts by, we got to figure out the demographics, who they are trying to reach. And are we making an extra effort to drop some red and orange and yellow in there? Are we trying to diversify to recruit more men or more women are in there? What are some of the symbolic associations with the with some of the colors that we're using? A lot of times when a client comes to us, they already have a logo, and we want to take some of the colors that are in that logo and put them into the new logo. So there's some continuity rather than like a total clean break. So there's a lot of factors that go into that. Some of the choices are, in a sense, scientific. There are, like, if you have a certain shade of blue and you want to put yellow next to it, you're going to pick a certain shade of yellow because they harmonize instead of clash. And that's not personal opinion. There's actually, use the color wheel for that. So there's a lot of considerations that go into that. And I rely heavily on graphic designers for that part of it. I myself am not a graphic designer. I really appreciate when an organization has a really good brand guideline and I just go to my designer and say, use these colors. Because if I don't, then we are potentially looking at either just, throwing, picking colors out of the hat more or less, or we have to go through this great big process to come up with some really thoughtfully chosen colors, which, is slow and not cheap.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for hanging around. Really appreciate everyone joining us this afternoon. So hope to see you all again October 12th. And again, I'll drop into the chat one more time the link for our survey. Hope to hear your feedback from today. And thank you again, Eric, for all your wisdom that you shared with us this afternoon.
See you in a couple weeks.
Sounds good.